Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Poor Man Mods. As many of you know, the turbo has blown on this car quite a few times, but the turbo is not blown right now. It's good. As of right now, it's good. But one thing we're going to be installing to kind of monitor things that might go wrong to hurt the turbo is an EGT sensor. We think that maybe we got too hot and melted the previous one. So big thanks to ProSport. They hooked us up with this EGT sensor, which installs into the manifold, which is why the entire car is torn apart. So this video won't really be a how-to on how to remove the manifold and all that stuff from the Supra, but it'll just be a how-to on how to properly hook up a EGT sensor. So we're gonna tear apart the Supra once again, rip everything out, and throw this bad boy in there and see how hot or cold the exhaust gases are. So to install this EGT sensor, it installs right here on the manifold, which on some vehicles you might be able to do it without removing anything, but in my case everything has to come off. So we gotta take the downpipe off, the intake off, the turbo off, and then the manifold has to come off so we can drill it and then weld it on the table. So the whole hot side is coming off.
Because they stripped them out and then...
Because what now?
Stripped them out and they don't last.
Ah! Alright, well, since you did that, you have to figure out how to get those three nuts off that I put on twice before.
Which ones?
The ones that are still on the studs.
Well, I'd probably start by... I'd sawzall this
I
out
was
of the
just
way.
gonna say that.
All of it.
What the fuck?
Oh my gosh! Oh my god! A breaker bar to the butthole.
I'm done. Figure it out. You're on your own. I was in there thinking, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm getting molested.
Should have dipped that one in motor oil.
Oh.
That would have slid down a little better.
I was ready for that. Fine.
Alright, out with this salt bitch. So, ProSport recommends that you drill and tap the exhaust manifold to install the sensor. My manifold is steel tubing and it's not cast. I'm sure most people that install EGT sensors have cast manifolds because typically diesel people install them. But I don't trust drill and tapping that manifold. It's a cheaper one. I'm not sure how thick the steel is, so I don't want to only have like one or two threads in there. So what I'm going to do is I found this 90-degree 1/8" NPT 90-degree thing. It's made out of steel. You laughing because I called it a thing?
You got this 90-degree MPT,
Yeah.
90-degree.
So, yeah, ProSport recommends that you drill and tap the manifold with an 1/8" NPT tap. So I'm going to cut this and make it straight and then weld that to the manifold. Got my 1/8" NPT 90-degree fitting in the vise. I'm just going to cut it straight down so I have a straight piece to weld to the manifold, because if I welded this to the manifold, the sensor can't really bend. And here's the finished product. It's not the flattest thing in the world, but I should be able to weld that no problem. So when you find a location where you're going to mount the sensor, it needs to be after all the collectors and before the turbo. So really, it's got to be right around here on a tubular manifold. And I'm thinking I'm going to put it right here. And I have this bolt right here just so I know I won't interfere with mounting the turbo, because if it was right here, then obviously that would interfere. So I'm going to weld this right here. And then once I get it welded, I will drill the hole for the sensor itself. Got it tacked up. Now I can start to lay some beads. I got the bung welded up and I put some water in the threads to make sure it doesn't leak, and it does not leak, so it is a nice tight seal. And the manifold probably looks a little bit different to you. I took it to my work and sandblasted it the best that I could, because I do plan on throwing some ceramic coat on here like I did with the turbo on my Spec V. I will have a detailed video on doing that, but I'm just gonna throw it on here real quick, which I won't go into detail in this video. But now, since the bung is on there, we now need to drill it. Here is the EGT sensor itself. This probe is an 1/8 inch, so you at least need to drill out the hole an 1/8 of an inch, but I'm not gonna be able to get the hole perfectly center, so I'm probably gonna use, I don't know, a drill bit maybe this big, which is a 7/32, but I'm gonna start off with a small one, make a little pilot hole, and then drill it out. I'm gonna clean out the threads before I try to get the sensor in there. I don't want to screw anything up. I'm really good at screwing things up though. See if it works. All right. I'd say that's good and tight. And here you can see the sensor coming through. It's got some pretty good penetration. All we have to do is we're gonna ceramic coat this, then we can throw it on the car and then run the wiring. We got the bung welded on for the EGT sensor. We ceramic coated this. I'll have a separate video for that. And now we can go ahead and put this back on the engine. As I scratch every bit of it. There we go. Yeah. Alright, we got the manifold bolted up. Now we can see if we're actually going to have clearance to install the sensor. Hopefully it works. There we go. So we are able to get the sensor installed, but I'm not going to install it just yet. I'm going to wait till I bolt on the turbo so I have room to get these bolts tightened. I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to bolt the turbo on, then I'll actually tighten this down. So when I took this manifold off to put the EGT sensor in, I noticed there was a crack on it right here. So I'm going to brace the manifold up a little bit. I actually just fabricated this bracket. I just bought some straight steel stock, put a bend here, and made another 90, welded it together, drilled some holes, and it should bolt up to this. Hell yeah. Now hopefully this will strengthen up a little bit so it doesn't get a crack in it. Now we're gonna, for real, install the EGT sensor and then run the wires into the cabin. Alright, once you get the sensor tight in the fitting, then you have to tighten this back portion because this is a compression fitting. You need to make sure the sensor itself is tight. Alright, once you get it nice and tight, you can run the wire into the cabin. We're going to try to go through the firewall hole right here, which I am very skeptical that I'm going to be able to get these wires with these connectors on there. Highly doubt that. I might have to cut these off and reconnect them, which not that big of a deal, but I'd rather not have to do that. And then once we get this inside, we just got to wire up the gauge to this and to the ignition and 12-volt source. If this goes through, this will be beautiful. This kit comes with its own gauge pod for the gauge. Now you don't have to use this one, you can use whichever gauge pod you want. But I think I'm going to mount mine right here on the steering wheel. So I'm going to run this wire through the glove box, up behind the gauge cluster, and try to wire it up somehow neatly. I don't think I want to put it on the dash because then it'll be real ugly, but I'm gonna put it right here. This comes with 3M tape, but you can also screw it on, which I will be doing. Oh yeah. So pretty much all we have to do now is connect the 2 wires to the sensor, and then you can hook up the gauge to power and ground. I'm just going to do that, but they do have a function. If you hook it up to the headlights, it'll go from white to amber, or amber to white if you want to change it at nighttime. But I'm pretty lazy, and I'm just going to hook this up to power and ground. I don't feel like hooking up multiple stuff right now, so I'll put it in the pod right here, wire up a power and ground, and then it's pretty much finished. Just fish the wires through the back of this gauge pod. And then I'm going to put some electrical tape around the gauge so it sits in the pod nice and tight, because right now it'll just spin.